Hey there! Remember this? I'm going to do a test firing today. Now the reason I'm doing this is because this is untested. I don't want to get everything set up, start melting metal, and then have the thing blow up. Some refractory materials, you do need to fire them to like vitrify the clay or whatever. This is not like that. This just said wait 48 hours before using the furnace or the chimney or whatever it was meant to do. So I'm just going to test it. But I test it by filling it full of charcoal, not full, but like, you know, a decent amount in there. Firing it up, let it get nice and hot, and I'm going to let it cool naturally and inspect the results, make sure it's not damaged. If everything goes to plan, then we got a furnace and we're ready for business. And more charcoal. That's probably good, half full-ish. Alright. Rock. Very important. And hair dryer. Alright, use the torch to light it. I bring the camera closer. See, that's what I see. Just a little bit of coal firing, burning nice and slow. Always turn the valve off on your torch and take it apart. Well, since this is going to be pretty boring to watch, I might as well use this as an opportunity to tell you what's coming. First, I'm building some flasks, the wooden flasks for sand casting. I don't know if that video will make it out before this one. Second is freezing. I don't know if you can see my breath. So work isn't going super fast in the garage because, you know, frostbite sucks. Third, I got a welder. I got a welding tank. Got a tank. I got a welder. I got all the safety equipment. I just don't have 220 in the garage. Now, the air compressor needs 220, so I've been meaning to get that. But my uncle, who I was going to get to do it, he's an electrician, he injured his back trying to pick up a huge boulder. So he's kind of out, so I don't know what I'm going to do on that. Anyways, when that gets figured out, I'm going to learn to weld, which will be a fun experience, and then I'm going to have to weld the Jeep together. That Jeep project. It's still going on. It's just kind of stopped. It's really hard to shape metal with one good hand. I'm recovering fine, so that'll be good, although they are going to do the other hand. So I'm going to maybe have like another month hiatus from doing anything productive. Furnace is cooking. Very important. Need something to drink while I'm watching. Also, on to what I'm going to do with this. I got a whole bunch of cans. These are non-crushed cans, mainly Mountain Dew, and a whole bunch of crushed cans over there. You hear people say cans are a great source of easy-to-find aluminum, and that's true. They also say cans are a terrible source of aluminum. That's also true. But I'm going to tell you about that later when I try to melt them. I have a system that I kind of came up with, took from some people who told me it was a better system. And I'm going to show you how to do that, how to melt cans, get the most aluminum out of it, and maybe how to make them cast a little better. Aluminum in cans and like extrusions or sheet doesn't have any silicon, so it casts like garbage. But you can still sort of use it. Just keep it separate from like cast aluminum. But I'll show you that later, assuming this thing doesn't blow up in my face, which means that I would need to build a whole new one and also get a new face. This kind of test firing is important, especially with crucibles. They say, like, put them in your oven for a few hours at 300 degrees, get the moisture out, and then fire them in your furnace up to red hot with nothing in it, and then let it cool down naturally. And that's to dry it out and temper the clay. Like I said, this doesn't have clay in it. It's castable refractory cement. And all it said was, let it cure for 48 hours before firing up the furnace. But I let it sit for weeks, like I said before. So I'm hoping it's dry enough. I also had it sitting in front of a vent, so it got warm, dry air. In the winter, the air gets really dry, and we don't have a humidifier system on our furnace, which is fantastic for the old sinuses and sore throat when it gets 0 degrees outside like it was last night. Alright, looks like it's heating up pretty good. I'm going to crank it to max and use up all my fuel. Now I'm using lump charcoal for this, hardwood lump charcoal, because it's supposed to burn a lot hotter. It also burns more completely and with less smoke. Charcoal briquettes are designed to burn colder and slower so you don't fry your steak. But these won't leave ashes in the bottom as much, and they also can get super hot, but they burn faster. I think the ultimate would be anthracite coal, which would be great if the Tractor Supply store close to me actually had some, but they don't. I'd have to go to another town, and that would be quite a trek when I don't have a lot of time. So I'm just going to stick with hardwood lump charcoal for now. Maybe go with anthracite later, maybe just get a burner for gas, I don't know. But once this is done, I'm going to let it cool off. Then I'm going to inspect the results. Make sure there's no signs of damage. The plaster one with lump charcoal like this showed damage immediately. But if you use that was kind of more like you can get into it easily, use charcoal briquettes from the store and melt aluminum, and it does that pretty well. But I was really pushing it. Copper is really hot. Copper is hotter than brass. Copper melts hotter, way hotter than aluminum. And it's just kind of more finicky. So now that I have an improved one, I'm going to just melt aluminum. That doesn't make sense. Also, if I ramble too much, please let me know in the comments. I don't think I can help it, but, you know, let me know. Let me know if you don't mind, anyway. That pretty much does it all. Take that off. Always take these out. Never turn this off and leave it in there. It'll melt the end of your hair dryer. That's the word I'm looking for. And then my wife would be very upset with me. Many days later. I let it cool off for a few days. We had relatives, so I wasn't doing anything. And here is what turned out. I turned it off before the fire was totally out, so there are still actually usable coals left in here. But this is not unusual for this lump charcoal. Very, very little of it returns afterwards. I think once it turns to ash, it tends to blow out the top, and then we don't have to worry about it anymore. I should probably dump all that out, though. Dumped out, and take a look. I don't know how well it shows up on camera, but it is basically unchanged from before I fired. There's some darkening in the little cracks, but the cracks were there. Like these kind of low spots were there when I cast it. So if that's just filled with ash is all that is. It feels just as solid. The hole looks about the same. I have these little flaky things up top, though. I think that's because the mortar kind of on the top didn't have any sand in it or whatever was in there, so it got a little bit flaky. But I'm not worried at all. It actually looks pretty good down by where all the fire was. Same goes for the lid. Underside of the lid looks basically unchanged. Completely, well, almost completely. There are little hairline cracks. I don't know if those are in the surface or if those are a deeper thing that I should be worried about. But that's where the fire was. Right there. And remember, it's all crumbly because I screwed it up when I was building it. Not because of the fire. On top, we have more of these flaky mortar things without any binder. That's also in part because I would jam something through the top and like stir the ashes, and I think I knocked it a bit. But see, there's only mortar up here, and that's partly my fault for mixing it poorly, or entirely my fault for mixing it poorly. For the little cracks in the lid, I'm going to use this. This is just 3 aircraft clamps that I have kind of stuck together so that they're roughly the right size. I think this, yeah, it's a little bit too small. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to unscrew these, loosen it up so it fits, and then tighten it down. And then the next time I go to fire this, which will be, well, pretty soon because now it's ready to go. When I fire it, this steel will expand, and I'll tighten it back down again. So when it cools, it'll shrink and be really, really tight, and this shouldn't crack apart. That's how I kept the plaster one together until I accidentally dropped it on the concrete like an idiot when I was doing some firings. But I didn't post that video. Still have all the footage, but I'm probably not going to. Anyway, and with that, it looks like this is a success. Ready to do some aluminum. Stay tuned. That's coming, well, probably not super soon, but, you know, eventually. All of this is gonna die.